So, welcome, dear students, in the course Category Theory. Myself, Dr. Aftab Hussain Shah. I am Assistant Professor in Department of Mathematics, Central University of Kashmir, Ganderbal. I will teach you a course based on elementary category theory. So, many of you have heard this name category theory for the first time. But category theory is such an important subject that it has applications in various other branches of mathematics as well as related fields such as computer science, and they are found in abundance in mathematics. As we would know in our course of study that almost all the familiar mathematical objects such as sets, groups, rings, vector spaces, Banach spaces, topological spaces, manifolds, you can say, ordered sets, automata, a branch of computer science. So all these things, all these objects, mathematical structure, they give rise to categories. So what is category theory actually? Category theory is an abstraction of all these ideas, or you can say the category theory is the abstraction and unification of, or you can say simplification of various mathematical themes with the help of diagrams and arrows. So if I define category theory in one line, so I would say that category theory is what? So roughly speaking, category theory is an abstract algebra of of different mathematical structures, different mathematical systems, or you can say a unification of different mathematical systems by means of diagrams and arrows. So by means of diagrams and arrows. So we study various abstractions of mathematical structures with the help of diagrams and arrows. And this abstraction and unification is actually a common mathematical theme. Okay, it actually helps us to study various mathematical problems. Say for example, I would give an example to justify that how an abstract idea covers lot many things and saves your time. Say for example, suppose you have given you are given three things or three sets. You are given a set R star of non-zero real numbers and with multiplication operation, and suppose you are given matrices, so say n cross k matrices, say for example complex matrices or our any general field with usual matrix addition, and suppose thirdly we are given a set B of all bijections on a set, with composition, operation of composition. And somebody asks us to prove that the inverses in each of these are unique. So a mathematician who has the idea of abstraction or who knows the structure of a group would give a one-line proof that all of these sets are groups, and in groups inverse of every element is unique. Okay, so suppose A is a member of any of these sets, A belonging to any of these above sets, and suppose A has inverses, two different inverses alpha and beta, then a one line proof shows that alpha is same as beta, because you can write alpha as alpha of 1, the identity, and then alpha A beta, as beta is the inverse of A, and then apply the associativity alpha A beta, it is 1, so 1 beta, and it is beta. So the abstract idea of group says that the existence of inverse in each of these cases has nothing to do with whether we are dealing with real numbers, matrices, or bijections. It simply has to do with the associativity property and the identity of the group. So abstraction, actually, by way of abstraction, we can study or we can unify various sets into a one object or one mathematical structure, that is, say, group here. Now category theory actually goes one step further. It not only unifies or studies the abstraction of different sets, it actually unifies various mathematical systems. Okay, so one step ahead if we go, then we lead into category theory. So category theory is actually the abstract study of various mathematical structures. Okay, and there are similar constructions in various mathematical structures that can be studied with the language of category theory. Now before going deep into the definition of a category, there are some foundational aspects that we must know, because in categories we would speak of extremely large collections such as all sets, all vector spaces. Okay, so we would not speak of a single set alone. We would speak of all sets, all vector spaces, all groups, and etc. so on and so forth. So from our set theoretic knowledge, we know that these entities cannot be regarded as sets. So these entities cannot be regarded as sets. These cannot be regarded as sets. As we know from one of the famous mathematician philosophers, Russell's paradox, that the set of all sets is not a set. So the set of all sets is not a set. The set of all sets is not a set. So therefore all sets, all vector spaces, all groups, they can't be regarded as sets. So in order to overcome this problem, we are actually going to introduce the concept of classes. Okay, so classes has been created with large collection of sets. So the concept of classes has been created to deal with large collection of sets. So what are classes actually? Classes are large collection of sets. Large collection of sets. So a large collection of sets is called a class. And a class is actually a collection of sets that can be defined by a property that all its members share. Okay, so classes has the property that every member of a class share the same property. So a large collection of sets such that each member of the collection has the same property. So such collections are called as classes. So the members of classes are actually sets, and the largest of all these classes is actually the class of all sets. So being a set is actually the property shared by all the members of this class. And if I take the class of vector spaces, so the property of being vector space is the common property of all the members of this collection. Similarly, the property of being a group is the common property of all the members of this collection. So all of these are classes. All sets, all vector spaces, all groups, they are classes. So one thing we must note that the members of each class are sets. Members of each class are sets. And among the largest of all the classes is actually the class of all sets, and this is called as universe. So the class of all sets is called as universe, and it is denoted by this symbol U. And we must also note that, or we can say that, given any classes A and B, I can apply the various set theoretic operations on classes as well. For example, I can take the union of these two classes. I can take the intersection of these two classes. I can take the Cartesian product of these two classes. I can define a function from one class to another class. So mathematics can be done similarly with classes as we do the mathematics on sets. But there are classes which are not sets. So the classes which are not sets, they are called as proper classes. So classes But before defining proper classes, we must also note that we regard each set as a class. Each set is a class. So we consider that each set is a class. And there are classes which are not sets. Say for example, the set of all sets is not a set. The set of all vector spaces is not a set. So those classes which are not sets, they are called as proper classes. So classes which are not sets, are called proper classes. Proper classes. Say for example, all sets. The class of all sets is a proper class. The class of all sets is a proper class. Similarly, the class of all groups is a proper class. The class of all vector spaces is a proper class. And we must also note that the sets are smaller than the proper classes. Okay, each set has fewer elements than any proper class. So remark, so sets have fewer elements than proper classes. Sets have fewer elements than proper classes. This is simply because of the fact that you cannot have a surjection, as we cannot have a surjection from a set into a proper class. You might be knowing that the Cantor's theorem for sets says that there is no surjection from a set to its power set. Okay, so, or in other words, we can say that the cardinality of a set is smaller than the cardinality of its power set. Similar observation applies here, that there is no surjection from a set to a proper class, simply because of the axiom of replacement, a well-known axiom in set theory. Suppose I have a class, I have a set I, and I have a family AI, I in I, indexed by this set I. Okay, so the indexing function is actually A sends any I here to AI. So the axiom of replacement says that if I take the image set of this indexing function, that is this set AI, such that I in I is a set. So this is, once it is a set, then there cannot be surjection from a set to a proper class, because if I have a proper class here, say for example C, and I have the a surjection, then C has to be same as this one, but this is a set and C is a proper class. So by definition, proper classes cannot be sets. So I would get a contradiction. So in this sense, I can say that sets have fewer elements than proper classes. So classes are bigger than sets. That is why sets are called as small classes. So small classes. sets are called as small classes, and proper classes, they are called as large classes. So this notion of small classes and large classes, or you can say the distinction between a small class and large class, it would be central in our further study of this course. Okay, because we would deal with categories, small categories, large categories. Okay, so that notion actually depends upon the underlying class, whether a class is large or a class is small. So these were some of the motivations and I can say foundations required before we go into the definition of a category. So now I'm going to define what is a category. So a formal definition of a category. So definition. So a category consists of four things. A category is a quadruple. So it consists of four things. Quadruple. C equal to, so what are the four things? O, home, identities, and composition. Where this O is what? O is a class of objects. O is the class of objects. So objects could be anything. They could be sets, they could be other than sets. So objects are sometimes also called as C objects, means object of this category. So objects, and then for each pair of objects you have their home set. For each pair A comma B of objects, a set home AB, or specifically home CAB, the set of morphisms, or you can say arrows, or functions, the set of morphisms from A to B. So second. Third, so there is an identity morphism on each object. So for each object A of C, there should be a identity morphism on this, or you can say the identity arrow on this object A, called the identity morphism. So we must not confuse here morphisms with functions. Morphisms can be functions and cannot be functions. So lastly, we have that if I have given any two morphisms between any two pair of objects, then between any two distinct pair of objects, or you can say same pair of objects, then I can always compose these morphism. So if F is a morphism, F belongs to home set of A and B, G belongs to home set of say B and C, then I can always compose to get a morphism G composition F belonging to the home set of A and C. So Di- Diagrammatically, you can say that I have a homomorphism, a morphism, or you can say an arrow f from A to B and another arrow B to C, say G. So I can compose this and get an arrow that is G after F from A to C. So a member of this set, this home set. So these, if I have a data of 4 things given, then I say that this data is a category if the following axioms are satisfied. So first axiom is that composition of arrows or morphisms is associative. So this C equal to object, home, identity and composition is said to be a category, is said to form a category if the following axioms are satisfied. So the axiom A, the first axiom is composition is associative. Composition of morphisms is associative. It satisfies the associative law. That is, suppose I have a morphism from A to B, say it is F, a morphism from B to C, say it is G, and C to D. So these are objects A, B, C, they are in the object class of C. Then this H composition G composition F should be same as H composition G composition F. So this is the first axiom of a category. Second axiom is that the identity morphism, identities of C act as identities with respect to composition. Means what? I have, suppose, an object A and the identity morphism on A. So if I compose this identity morphism or identity arrow with any other arrow, that is F composed with identity on A, I should get back F. And similarly, suppose I have identity on B from here to here, then identity on B composed with F should be F. So the identities of C act as identities with respect to composition in this sense, that identity morphism on any object composed with any other morphism from this object to the other object should give back the same morphism F. And last axiom is that these home sets are pairwise disjoint. Home CAB or pairwise disjoint. So not all the authors take this axiom, include this axiom in the definition of category, because as while verifying that a given data of this type is a category, we will notice that if axiom B and C, sorry, if axiom A and B they are satisfied, they guarantee that this C is satisfied. So therefore, while verifying the axioms of category, we usually avoid this axiom C. We don't verify this. But for the sake of technical convenience, we have just given this axiom within the definition of a category. So this is the definition of a category. So category C consists of four things: a class of objects, and between any two pair of objects a set of arrows or morphisms, and on each object you have the identity morphism and the composition of morphisms. Given any two morphisms, you can compose them such that these three conditions are satisfied. Composition must be associative, identity arrow on each object composed with any other arrow should give back the same arrow, and home sets, they are distinct home sets, they are disjoint. Okay, so anything which satisfies these four axioms, we call it as a category. Now before going into the examples of category, we must note few things from the definition of the category itself. So what are those things? You can say that it is a remark. Suppose I have given a category C. If C equal to this O, home, identity, and composition is a category, then I can notice few things. Or you can say, now this object, the class of objects of C is denoted by, so O, the class of objects of C is denoted by this symbol OBC, OB of C. OB of C means the object class of C. Okay, second thing, the class of all C morphisms, the class of all morphisms of C, all morphisms of C is denoted by this symbol mor C. So mor C is what? The class of all morphisms of C. Means what? I take the union of all the home sets, I will get this class. It is what? It is union of all home sets. Union of all home CAB. Union of all home sets. Okay. Now, third, if I have an arrow F from A to B, then I call A as the domain of F and I denote it by this symbol. A is called the domain of F and this B is called as the codomain of F. Codomain of F. So see the third condition. Third condition says that distinct these home sets, distinct home sets are disjoint. So it means that each object has a unique domain and each morphism or each arrow has a unique domain and a codomain. So from axiom C in the definition of the category, it implies that each morphism F in the home home CAB has a unique domain and a unique codomain. Means A is the domain, unique domain, and B is the unique codomain. Has the unique domain and a unique codomain. And the composition this F after G is defined only if the domain of F is same as the codomain of G. It is defined if codomain of G, so chord G is same as dom F. Then you can define the composition of any two morphisms or any two arrows. Oh, these were some of the things that we must notice from the definition of a category. Now we shall discuss few examples of categories. So in order to make the idea clear, so example 1, this set, the category of all, the class of all sets, the set, the category of all sets. So all sets form a category. So what is the object class in this case? So objects of this collection of sets, the collection of all sets is actually the class of all sets. So objects of this set category is the class of all sets. And morphisms are what? So for any two objects, or you can say for any two sets A comma B in this class of sets, home AB is what? Is the set of all functions from A to B. Set of all functions from A to B. And what is this identity? So for any object A to itself, the identity on A is simply what? The identity function on A. The usual identity function, or you can say identity map on A. And composition is what? Composition is just the composition of maps. So this composition in this case is the composition of maps. Composition of maps. So all the four things in the data of a category we have the objects also, the object set, the object class is the class of all sets, and home sets are what? The set of all functions from any pair of sets. Identity on each object is the identity function, and the composition is what? The composition of maps. And the axioms are routine, because we know that the composition of functions is always associative, and the identity function composed with any other function would give you the same function. Okay, and distinct functions have distinct domains and codomains. So therefore we can say that this set is a category. So this is called as the category of all sets. Now we will discuss other examples in our next lecture. So see you in the next lecture.